So when it comes to the Nintendo Switch, if you've been watching this channel for really any length of time, you would know one thing. The most disappointing thing to me about the system, the most annoying thing about the system is definitely the Nintendo Switch Online service. Now, when we were first introduced to this service, it seemed kind of okay, you know, save data and stuff like that in the cloud. That's a good thing. Being able to play your games online with multiplayer, you know, that used to be free, but now you're charging for it. Okay, whatever. But the real draw to the service was, of course, the classic games. Now, where on the Wii U and the Wii, you had a plethora of systems to play from, where you could just purchase these games individually from a plethora of systems. On the Nintendo Switch, you didn't really have this. You had more of an a la carte style thing with NES games. Now, I love the NES. I have a lot of fond memories about the NES, and at first, we had a lot of really good NES games that were added in. Pretty much every month, there was at least one surprise game, one banger of a game where it was like, okay, this is a fun game, and this is a game I want to revisit. And now, if this game had multiplayer, I could play this online with someone else, so that was kind of cool. Then, of course, they added in the Super Nintendo games, and that's when it seemed like Nintendo was actually getting a bit serious about the Nintendo Switch's online service. Having the NES and Super Nintendo, I mean, you literally have thousands of quality games to choose from between both of these systems, but as time has gone on, Nintendo, I don't know, maybe they got sort of cold feet about this service, maybe they're not as into it as a lot of people are, but the quality of titles has definitely diminished over time. You used to get games every month. Now you get games like every 2 or 3 months, and the quality of these games is definitely a bit suspect. Looking at the last update for the Nintendo Switch Online with the Super Nintendo games, I mean, Bomboozle, Jelly Boy, are these games that people grew up playing? I don't necessarily think so. Like, these are kind of obscure games, especially when we're talking about games like Super Mario RPG, Star Fox 2, all the Final Fantasy games, Ninja Turtle games that are not available on the Nintendo Switch's online service. I feel like a game like Bomboozle is a game that your parents bought you if, well, you were a mistake. They didn't really plan on having you, but now they have a child, and this child likes video games. So what do? You give them Bomboozle to show, hey, you know what, we really don't love you. We really don't love you. So I definitely feel like it's time for Nintendo to improve the Nintendo Switch's online service. And honestly, I have a feeling in my stomach that this is coming sooner rather than later, with a new introduction of a new system, the Game Boy family of systems. So today we're going to speculate on why I feel that way, what they can do to sort of improve the service, why other consoles might not come to the service, and why I think the Game Boy is definitely something that's coming, and hopefully coming very soon. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, be sure to like and share the video, but without any further ado, let's talk about the potential of the Game Boy coming to the Nintendo Switch's online service. So really, when you boil it down, I think there's two systems that people really want on the Nintendo Switch online service that they've definitely been asking for, and that would be the Game Boy family of systems and the N64. So these are kind of the next two systems that people expect to be added to the service. Now, when it comes to the N64, I personally would love it, but we have to be realistic about something here. A lot of these games, well, they haven't aged all that gracefully. The N64 library of games is, of course, very small comparative to something like the PlayStation 1 or even the Sega Saturn. There weren't many N64 games that came out. Most of the best N64 games are games from, of course, Nintendo and companies like Rare. There were some third-party exceptions that were pretty good, but for the most part, they were all in-house projects. Now, one of the things about these N64 games is, like I said, they've pretty much aged with, like, you know, a milk sort of standard. Like, I could definitely play them because I'm used to them, but when we're talking about people who maybe haven't experienced these N64 games, I mean, they're blurry. There's problems with the controls. The control schemes are very weird, and having to mimic those on the Nintendo Switch could be somewhat cumbersome. We've seen Nintendo add a N64 game to the Nintendo Switch with, of course, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. We got Super Mario 64 on there. They cleaned up the graphics a little bit, and it was still definitely a very enjoyable experience. But those experiences are few and far between on the N64. There's not a whole lot of games that I can just pop into my N64, pick up and play them, and not have to worry about the controls and not have to worry about the muddy graphics. Now, on the Game Boy side of things, it's honestly a completely different story. The Game Boy, of course, consists of the Game Boy Color, and the Game Boy Advance. I think Nintendo would go all in on this and just pretty much put a Game Boy Advance sort of thing on there. For me, it's a smart thing to do a Game Boy Advance system on the Nintendo Switch because you have that backwards compatibility with Game Boy Color and the Game Boy games. Now, of course, the library of Game Boy to Game Boy Advance is astronomical. Like, there's thousands of games on there between the three systems, platformer games, RPG games, games that still hold up very well today, games that you can only play on these systems, such as games like Metal Gear Solid, which only came out on Game Boy Color, tons of awesome RPGs, tons of awesome platformer games, tons of awesome action games. There's a lot of stuff to choose from when we're talking about the Game Boy family of systems. Now, really, what is spurring on the feeling that the Game Boy is going to be the next system and it's going to be coming sooner rather than later? Well, it pretty much has to do with Nintendo themselves. Earlier today, on August 6th, they put up a post on Twitter talking about the 35th anniversary of the Metroid franchise. Of course, Metroid is a very hot topic right now for Nintendo fans. Metroid Dread will be coming out in the month of October, on October 8th, which is the first new 2D entry in the Metroid franchise in 19 years. So a lot of people have been anticipating this. The die-hard Metroid fans are definitely looking forward to this, and 2.9 million of them will buy this game in the first year, but I still don't think it's gonna hit 3 million in the first year. But Nintendo put out this tweet this morning, and you're either really tone deaf or you're teasing something with this. But I'm going to believe the latter with this because I don't think a video game company could be that stupid, but I don't know, maybe Nintendo is. Now, this tweet is of course talking about the previous entries in the 2D Metroid franchise, two of which are available on the Nintendo Switch via the online service, with Metroid and Super Metroid on the NES and Super Nintendo respectively. Now, of course, these games are classic games and everyone really loves these games, and they pretty much set the foundation and the groundwork for Metroid and really Metroidvania games. But now we have to talk about the other 2D games that are being highlighted in this tweet, with Metroid 2, Samus Returns, and Metroid Fusion. Now, both of these games, of course, came on the Game Boy family of systems. Metroid 2 was a Game Boy exclusive until it was redone for the 3DS, and Metroid Fusion is stuck on the Game Boy Advance with no other way to play it. Cartridges to play these games are very expensive, but what I think is interesting about this tweet is the fact that when they posted this tweet, they're talking about Metroid 2, the Game Boy version, and Metroid Fusion, the Game Boy Advance version. They could have easily put up Samus Returns for the 3DS on there because, I mean, story-wise, it's essentially the same game. It's just sort of remade with better graphics and a few different additions added into the game. But in this tweet, they're talking specifically about the Game Boy version of Metroid 2. That's the picture they show with this. They didn't show a Samus Returns box art. They simply showed this box art for Metroid 2. So now I'm getting to thinking, Nintendo has to be doing something. It's been a while since they've added in a new system to the Nintendo Switch's online service. A lot of people want the N64, but I don't think the N64 has aged all that gracefully to the point of where Nintendo would want to put these games on the service. When you're talking about adding in a console, the most interesting thing to me would be the Game Boy family of systems. And this tweet has to be alluding to it. You can see my reply here. You have to be trolling at this point. Put the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance on Switch Online. Like, I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. I think Nintendo has to be teasing something with this, or else they are just completely tone deaf with the Nintendo Switch's online service. You have gone on record time and time again saying that you want to expand upon the service. You want to add more value to the service, and what better way than by adding in a new family of consoles, or handhelds I guess I should say, to the Nintendo Switch's online service. Think of how good those Game Boy games will look on an OLED screen when the Nintendo Switch OLED model launches on October 8th alongside of Metroid Dread, and think of how, well, questionable those N64 games would look if there's no scaling done to these games or high-res textures added into them. I think the Game Boy makes a lot more sense. You have a lot more games to choose from. You have a whole family of systems of games to choose from, and you're trying to promote Metroid. You're trying to get people excited about Metroid. Why not add in the two games that you can't play on the Nintendo Switch that, for some reason, you keep talking about time and time again in every single one of these Metroid previews as games that people need to check out, but you don't offer them a way to check it out? And I swear to God, if any of you guys are in the comment section saying, just play it on the Wii U, like, shut up. The Wii U sold 13 million systems. The Wii U was a system that was an absolute failure. Most people do not own a Wii U, and if you own a Wii U, you probably don't play it all that much. And if you do play it, well, you're just sort of an anomaly. My Wii U is packed away. I know exactly where it is, but I don't want to dig it out. I don't want to dig out that system and charge up my gamepad where the games and the screen resolution doesn't look nearly as good as it would on a television. I want to play it on the latest Nintendo system. If I could transfer my Wii and Wii U purchases over to the Nintendo Switch, that would be one thing. But of course, Nintendo is not doing that. They are doing this more Netflix style system where they're adding in games for the NES and Super Nintendo. Nintendo, it's time to add in the Game Boy family of systems. And if you're teasing all of this stuff, you keep talking about these Game Boy games and you don't end up adding the Game Boy to the Nintendo Switch's online service, I think you're gonna piss a lot of people off, and well, I'm gonna be one of those people. Alright, so that is why I feel that Nintendo is adding in the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance systems to the Nintendo Switch Online service potentially very soon, maybe this fall, maybe even before Metroid Dread comes out, to give people the opportunity to play these games in the franchise that, well, maybe they missed out on and they can't afford to purchase the cartridge because emulation is bad according to Nintendo and you cannot emulate these games. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this. Am I just tinfoil hat conspiracy with this, or do you think that there is something to this? Is there a reason Nintendo keeps talking about the Game Boy Metroid games other than the fact that they are canon to Metroid Dread? Because you gotta let people play these games. There has to be a way to play them, and if you're not letting them play them through emulation, well, the next best thing would be able to play them on your Nintendo Switch Online service. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like and share the video if you enjoyed it. Check out other videos on the channel as well, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.